Welcome to day 9 of Vlogmas. I am feeling grotty today. I have a definite head cold and I have had a very, very lazy day. Just sat on the sofa, catching up with weeks and weeks worth of Casualty that I'd got behind on. Casualty is my absolute guilty pleasure when it comes to TV. I've been watching it since I was about 18. Well, probably even younger than that, actually. I've been watching it since I was a teenager and I love it. But the last few weeks I've kind of forgotten about it and not caught up, so it was amazing because I had like 5 episodes to watch and I've just sat on the sofa and knitted and watched all 5 episodes and done nothing else. I will regret it when I have to catch up with work later in the week, but it's what I needed. So yeah, I've had a very, very lazy sofa day. But it does mean that I've not really recorded anything day-to-day-ish for Vlogmas. So I thought we'd sit down and have a chat about books, because it's one of the things I was going to talk about during Vlogmas at some point, and today seemed a good day to do it. So I set myself a challenge at the beginning of 2021. I was about to say 2020 because it doesn't feel like the last few years have happened, does it? I set myself a challenge back at the beginning of 2021 to read 15 books this year. So in 2020, I think I set myself a challenge to read 12 books and then I achieved that. So this year I upped it a little bit to 15. And I have actually achieved that. I am on my 16th book of the year at the moment. And I thought I'd do a quick recap of the books that I've read. Now, I read a lot of books since halfway. When did I get my... See, none of that makes sense to you unless I finish my sentences, does it? I got a Kindle Paperwhite. I think I got it in around April of this year. I vaguely remember getting it during April vlogs. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, I've got a Kindle Paperwhite, and since I purchased it, most of the books that I've read, I've been reading on my Kindle. I absolutely love it. I really do. I feel guilty quite often because it means I don't buy books from small independent bookshops and things like that, but it does just make my life so much easier because Tom often goes to sleep earlier than me and I can still read without having to have the light on, and it's, yeah, I love it. So basically all of that to say that I don't have physical copies of a lot of the books to kind of hold up. So what I will do, which I will regret when I'm editing later, what I will do is I will pop up next to me on the screen. I will pop up images of the book covers so you can see the books that I'm talking about. Some of these will be familiar to you because I think I went through books that I've been reading back in April, but obviously that was a while ago. So I've read more since then, something like that. So the first book that I read this year was All the Light We Cannot See, which is by Anthony Dua. I'm not 100% sure on pronunciations. And that was amazing. I really, really enjoyed it. It focused on, it's based during World War II, and it focused on a French girl and a German boy and kind of the interaction, and well, not so much the interactions they had, but how their lives went separately, and then at some point they come into contact, and it's kind of the effect of the war on their lives. And it's really interesting looking at it from the different side of having a German boy and a French girl and looking at the different sides of the war. And it was a really, really good book. I really enjoyed it. It was really engaging. And it's one that I would recommend to pretty much anybody. The second book I read this year was a YA that you'll discover a bit of a theme when it comes to some of the books that I've read this year. I seemed to have got a bit of a theme about kind of magic and fantasy stuff. So the second book I read was Harley, Merlin and the Secret Coven by Bella Forrest, which is a YA series, I believe. I've only read the first one. Basically, it's a girl who had all these magical, mystical powers growing up. She was an empath growing up, but she didn't know her family, she didn't know her history, and then something happens and she discovers that she was part, or her family were part of this secret coven, and then she kind of gets dragged into that world. and starts to learn more about herself, basically. It was fun. I did enjoy reading it. It was quite engaging, but it was very much a modern YA novel with lots of modern slang and things like that. So if you enjoy kind of a nice, easy to read YA novel, then it's a good one. But it's definitely, it's definitely that kind of niche fantasy YA kind of thing. And then the third book I read this year was Uprooted by Naomi Novik, which was really, really good. I really enjoyed that. And again, that's one I would recommend to a wide range of people. It basically, I think it's based on kind of Eastern European fairy tales. Young girl in a village gets each year or every 10 years, I can't quite remember exacts, but every so often the village has to give a girl to their not their ruler, but like he's known as the dragon, and he provides protection for the village, and every so often a girl is taken to serve him for a period of time, and then after that she goes off to the big fancy city. But it was really good. I can't give away too much because there's lots of kind of twists and turns in it, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I would really, really recommend it. It was really good. The fourth book that I read this year was Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin, which is the second book in the Broken Earth trilogy, which is kind of a post-apocalyptic fantasy. Again, it's another one that is full of massive twists and turns, and even just kind of telling you little bits about it could potentially spoil some of the twists and turns. So I can't go into too much, but it is brilliant. It's really clever. It's really well thought out. I'm one of those people that quite often guesses twists in books, and it kept me surprised the whole way through, both the first one and the second one. I started the third one, but I've kind of put it away because I wasn't in the right headspace to read it when I started reading it. But I definitely want to read the third one in the trilogy because, yeah, they were really clever and really good and very different to anything else I've read kind of fantasy before. And then I read 3 books because I read a trilogy. I read the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which is by... Quick pause for some sneezing. I read the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which is by Lee Bardugo. Again, pronunciations. Which I'm sure a lot of you would have heard of. There is a Netflix TV series based on... I don't know if it's based on the whole trilogy or just based on the first book. It's not overly true to the books from what I read or what I watched of the TV series. I didn't watch the whole TV series because I was kind of reading the books at the time, and I kind of realised that they were quite different and I was struggling with that, so I just read the books. But I really enjoyed them. Again, it's got that similar kind of fantasy theme of a young girl who didn't really know her family and stuff growing up, and discovers that she has these mystical powers and then gets embroiled in a world she wasn't expecting as a result of those mystical powers. But it's really fun. Again, it's quite a unique kind of setting in terms of the world that the novels are set in. They are, I think, YA, but they would be quite good for kind of anybody to read. Then I read a slightly odd book, which I read it and I enjoyed it, but I don't think I would carry on with the series. And that was The Last Dragon Slayer by Jasper Fforde. I think it's... I don't even know if I'd call it a YA or if it might have been slightly younger than that. But, yeah, a girl discovers that she's a dragon slayer and there's a dragon and she's supposed to slay it, but she doesn't want to slay it, and in a very Jasper Fforde way, it's very, very complicated, and yeah, it was alright. It was fun. Don't think I'd read any more in the series, but I didn't hate it. I then switched to a few different types of books. I then started reading a few thrillers. And I read The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley, which I really enjoyed, actually. It was very different to anything else I'd read so far this year. It's basically about a group of rich Londoners who go for New Year. They go to a remote Scottish remote Scottish cottage, basically. It's kind of a series of cottages. They put on a big New Year's Eve do out in the Highlands in Scotland, and there's a murder, and it's kind of all the secrets from these friends who do this every year but haven't really seen much of each other this year, and all their secrets get revealed. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. All their secrets get revealed, and it was a good thriller. It was a good, fun thriller. Lots of twists and turns again, and kind of a good kind of whodunit, basically. And then the next book I read was The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. And again, this is another one I would recommend to absolutely everybody. I loved it. It was set, you followed two female characters. Firstly, you followed one of them in 1915 as she's recruited to be a spy in the Alice Network, a series of female spies planted in Germany to gather information for the English. And then you also follow in 1947 a young American girl who comes into contact with said spy as an older person, and kind of their journey together, and as they kind of head back into Germany, and yeah, it all kind of reveals itself, and you learn a lot more about what happened originally and kind of how the main character has ended up how she is now. I can't really say too much, but it was really good, kind of looking at the effects of World War II and the effects of being this spy has had on her throughout her life. And then, what else did I read? Then I read The Poison Heart, which again is a YA novel. It's by Kaylin Byron, again. Very similar themes to previous ones, in that it is very much a girl who didn't know her true parents, and her true parentage growing up has these magical mystical powers that gives her control over plants, and she suddenly gets an inheritance of a house out in the countryside, and they go to the house, and through going to this house she learns all about who she is and her past and everything like that. It was good fun though, and it was a YA novel that, again, it's not too young. I really enjoyed it. It was quite good fun. I'd be tempted to read more of her books, actually. She's got another one called Cinderella is Dead, which is kind of a twist on Cinderella, obviously. So that was really fun. I then read another couple of thrillers. I read the first two books in the Stillhouse Lake trilogy, so Stillhouse Lake and Kilman Creek, which are by Rachel Kane, and they were really fun. I'd read more, actually. The only reason I didn't read more is because I read those back to back, and then it kind of resolved the first part of the story, and I couldn't quite see where it was going to go on from there, even though there are more books in the series. So I think I just needed to give myself a little bit of a break in order to then come back and see where the story goes. But it basically follows, I've forgotten the main character's name, it follows a mother with two children who, when her children were young, her husband was a serial killer, and it turns out that he was a serial killer, and she didn't know about this until one day a car crashed into their garage and his kill zone was found, basically. He goes off to jail, and she lives with the after effects, and it picks up with her a number of years later, kind of the effect that this has had on her life, the effect it's had on her children's life, and the effect it continues to have, basically, and the fact that they've always had to move from place to place and keep their secret, and then at some point the husband escapes from jail and it kind of all explodes. But it was really fun. It was a really, well, fun is not quite the word, but it was a really good thriller. It was really, really enjoyable, and it really kept you on your toes. I then read a couple of slightly more lighter-hearted books, unsurprisingly, after that. I read the first two books in the Cricket Chronicles series, which is actually a series of books written, so it's written by Ryan Fletcher, which is the pen name of Angie, who is the dyer behind Game of Crafting. So the first book is Deus Ex Mechanic, and the second book is Imperfect Shot, and they're basically space pirate romances. It is really light. It's really fun, really light-hearted. I love the way, so the first book follows a set series of characters, and then the second book you're still in the same world and interacting with some of those characters, but it introduces new characters that you now follow. And I quite like series that do that, where you start off with a set of characters and their story kind of resolves, and then you stay in the same world but with new characters. So you still get to see the old characters from the previous books, but they're not the focus of the story anymore. I quite enjoy that. So they were really good fun. And then that's all the books that I finished. And I'm currently reading 3 Hours by Rosamund Lipton, which again is another thriller. And it's, it basically, well, I'm not 100% sure because I'm about halfway through it. Basically, it follows a school shooting, but it's set in the UK. So it's a school shooting that occurs in the UK, and it's based over 3 hours. So the story is told in the space of 3 hours from when it starts until, I assume, when it resumes. And you follow various characters as part of what's going on. So you've got the policewoman who's kind of investigating it, you've got one of the mothers, and you've got some of the children in different locations within the school. And I'm really enjoying it. It's really interesting. I have a suspicion that there's going to be quite a big twist, because we've got, we're trying to work out who the gunman is and why they're there and what, but it's very interesting. It doesn't just seem to be as simple as somebody's just come in and is shooting up the school. That's not how it's working out. So it is really, really interesting. Anyway, I'm starting to lose my voice, and I talked for far longer than I was expecting to about books. But hopefully tomorrow I will be feeling a little bit brighter, a little bit less grotty, and we can get back to a bit more of a normal Vlogmas. But let me know in the comments, if you've stuck with me this far through my discussion about books, let me know in the comments what are your favourite books that you've read this year, so that I can add them to my never-ending list of books that I should read. And I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.
It's time for the... It's Sammy! It's time for the joke of the day.